companies where they blow up and they, sell for $100 million just from robbing people. And you're going like, that is so messed up. But I'm going to you like, yeah, it'll come around. But yeah, I mean, a lot of these people just get away with it. But it's not sustainable growth. I mean, obviously if you sell for $100 million, hopefully it's pretty sustainable, but,
yeah,
but if the companies that do it the right way, those are the companies that you see that have, the same guys work in the same booth at the trade shows of, you see the other companies where it's like, oh, this person has a different colored shirt this year because they're pushing too hard and they're cramming.
Welcome to the Payments Experts Podcast, a podcast of Global Legal Law Firm. We hope you enjoy this episode. Today we've got joining us in studio, managing partner of the firm, James Huber, as well as our special guest joining us remotely, Maurice Griefer of My CPO. Maurice, I think you and James have known each other a long, long time. We're really excited about this podcast. Welcome.
Yeah, likewise. Yeah, we go back for sure. So I'm excited to be here.
Yeah, Mo, I was thinking about this morning what to talk about. And I thought one of the interesting things is you're one of the few people who probably grew up with merchant processing being discussed at the dinner table. Or I don't know if it was discussed, but your dad, Alan Griefer, is, one of the OGs, bought and sold huge companies. So what was that like growing up right in the middle of the hurricane?
Yeah. So yeah, the story's funny when people ask, how I got into it. I was just, born basically, and I don't think I had literally born, and I don't think I had another, path really. It's kind of funny too. So in college, I joined, my start in the payment space was at Maverick, who everyone kind of knows now at this point. So I started literally the day after I graduated college, but in college, I did a couple internships, just wanted to see, is there anything else I might like? And, no, I didn't like anything. Any internships that I did, I just, didn't like it. I'm like, all right, I'm going to, payments are meant for me. Clearly it's in my blood. But yeah, so when my dad started, I was only 10. So, I really grew up in it. And I always thought it was really interesting. I didn't really, pay attention too much, obviously being that young, but I remember going in when I was in high school, going into the, the office of the first ISO that he started, and they had that, crazy bullpen, 75 salespeople, something like that. And that energy was really crazy to see. And then, really getting into it full time was fun. Cause when I started, back at Maverick, there was just a couple of us, and obviously I was there for 12 years. So seeing that growth, just that crazy growth that Maverick had, obviously working alongside my brother and dad was a crazy journey. But it's a fun industry. I mean, it's really hard to once you're in the industry to get out and do something else. It's a crazy industry that we're in, but it's a lot of fun, and I love it.
Yeah, I do too. I always love the energy in those call centers also. When we first got in the space, we'd go into those places and it's literally like paper flying around, and back when we first got in, it was like Wolf of Wall Street. And I would joke with people and I'm like, did you guys I would tell people, I was like, our clients are they watched the first 3 quarters of Wolf of Wall Street and they got bored and didn't see how it ended. Because it was like that. And then we were going I'd walk in there and be like, this is a nightmare. Get me a mop because I'm drooling, because I'm going, there's so much compliance work. And they're going, we don't want to do the compliance work. We just want to make money. And I'm going, well, you're going to get sued a lot. And they're like, well, that's why you're here. So we're going, great. And the industry's changed. I haven't seen a call center like that. I know that they're still out there, but it's not the same, not to say that, your dad's company was smash and grab, but kind of everybody was back then. But
a lot's changed, from
changed.
the 90s to early 2000s to now. I mean, the ISO model is so much different. I mean, a lot of ISOs now just outsource sales. So like you don't even have that crazy bullpen of salespeople in house. It's all, a lot of those ISOs, the big ones especially, they're getting their deals through agents and, companies like, My CPO and myself. So the structure's changed a lot. But, I'm sure there's still some of those crazy companies out there, but it's, you can't, do a lot of that stuff. And even, with how much the industry's changed, there's a lot more, there's still not a lot of it, which I always, thought it was kind of interesting. There's just like no regulation for like the sales, side of it, the sales agents. There's really not. It's all, I guess, kind of reputation based, but I hear merchants saying, hey, this agent told me this and that, like, recently. So I was talking to a merchant that was, high risk, they're in that Nutra space and like, hey, just get a mid and put like you're a furniture MCC. I'm like, that's not possible. One, that's, the merchant doesn't like decide what MCC they're going to use. And I'm like, that agent you're getting advice from, you probably shouldn't be working with him. I don't think he really knows what he's doing. So, obviously then, you're starting to get into Vamp, which obviously we'll talk about, and just kind of the current landscape of the payments industry. You just got a lot of these knuckleheads out there that, they're thinking short term. They just think dollar signs right. And they're not really setting up their merchants, properly. And they're just burning relationships with the ISOs that they work with. So there's still a lot of craziness in the industry. But that will never go away.
Yeah, I mean, that's one of the bigger problems that we see in this space, particularly, we do a lot of match work, getting people off of match, and we see it. We're going, you shouldn't be on match, but it's because you were set up wrong. And I find it interesting because these, the high risk guys, the guys that are running, multiple merchants that are, moving transactions between websites and stuff, it's almost like they just expect things to go up and go down every 3-4 months, and they move from here to there to there. But there's a right way to do it. There's a right way if you're actually selling a real product. As long as you're selling a real product and you're not, selling what we were looking at a website the other day. It was like, we sell guitar picks and toasters. And I was like, the fuck did this make it through underwriting?
That's very weird, but and too, we see weird stuff all the time, and I always kind of like to give merchants benefit of the doubt, and just I don't like to make quick judgments because I've seen weird things all the time, and it ends up being a legitimate merchant. They're like, hey, I just was on social media and TikTok, and like I see these kind of trendy products, and like they're all not related at all, but I just want to sell it on a website and see if I can make some money and kind of start a business. Like, okay, it's kind of weird, but prove me wrong otherwise. But the match issue, that's been an ongoing, struggle, I think, for many high risk merchants. It's probably going to get worse with Vamp, but it sucks too, because a lot of merchants, they don't have bad intentions and they're not bad actors. Going on to like, transaction laundering, which is a common one we see. Merchants, they don't realize it. Like I was literally talking to a merchant last week too that, we recently onboarded. They have 2 Nutra websites, and they just said, hey, we got we boarded one. And then they said, hey, we got another website that we have that we want to get processing for. We're just going to use that mid for our other website for now. I'm like, no, you cannot do that. Like you're right. Just, and there was I don't think there was any bad intention there, but the merchants don't really know, like they don't know all the rules and like what you're not supposed to do, and what can get you in trouble. So like, you're with the wrong processor and you do something like that. Not even trying to have any bad intentions, but the processors, can be really quick to say, you know what, we caught you selling on another unapproved website. We're closing your mid, we're holding all your money, and we're going to throw you on match list for transaction laundering. And that can just totally cripple a business, which really sucks to see. And obviously you guys do a lot of work there. So it's just, part of the challenges and stuff we're dealing with every day.
Yeah, I mean, we see it too. Like I like what you said of a lot of these merchants don't have bad intentions, because we see a ton of it where they didn't have bad intentions. They're getting punished because their business was too successful. The ISO set them up as a, 50K limit, and they're going, well, we're selling hundreds of thousands of dollars of, was it 3 years ago? My wife bought it looked like it was an animatronic live pig. for like $12, and she got there and it's like one of those little wind up like pigs, and I was like, these guys sold the shit out of this thing.
Oh yeah,
because of the video, I thought I was getting a live robotic pig. But now that's a little bit deceiving. So maybe that was a bad example. I just wanted to bring that one up because my wife watches this podcast.
Yeah, you got a lot of those impulse buy, and merchants, they make money off of those in those, kind of those gadget type of accounts where just really impulsive, low ticket. You see, you're targeted an ad, or you come across a, creator video with a link to buy one of these things you probably don't really need, but it's like, oh, it's kind of cool. It's, $15-$12, like whatever, I'll just buy it. But it comes to you and it's like, just not at all what you thought you were going to get. It's not at all, but like, are you really going to do a chargeback? But my point on even the mechanical pigs is if you're not set up correctly, that thing's going to go gangbusters. So your ISO should be looking at this and looking at the video, and you're probably going, your chargebacks are going to be an issue. I've seen the pig, but when they ramping up, you're going to sell the shit out of this products right before Christmas. And a lot of us, white people sit here and we're like, I just got to fill up the room with presents, like more plastic shit. I know I'm going to throw it away, but just fill it, click, click, click. Like we got to spend this much. And then now one kid's got a bigger present. So I've got to spend more to make it even on that kid, more pigs. Yeah. It's that always sucks when you're getting penalized for being successful.
Right.
But that's where it all kind of goes down to, those early conversations, whoever, as the merchant, whoever you're working with, your agent, whoever, you gotta be, I think you have to have those conversations like, here's our plan. Like you don't know my background. Like we just got, introduced, but I'm very capable of scaling this company to $1 million a month in, 3 to 6 months. I'm that good of a marketer. I got this, this crazy, growth projections. And if the agent's like, all right, I'm just going to get you a 50K mid and we're just going to kind of see how it goes for a little bit. But like, if they're in like week 2 and they're already at 50K, like you're already kind of in trouble. So, those conversations, as the merchant, just really kind of explaining your business, making sure you're on the same page with your processor, your agent, whoever you're working with is really critical, because so many issues, that merchants run into, I think can be prevented by just having a good conversation of like, I really need to know like everything about your business, your plans, but also too on the underwriting side, I think ISO's got to, do a pretty good job at asking those questions. And, sometimes too, merchants get frustrated when like underwriting has a lot of back and forth. They have questions, but like, it's probably a good thing. They really want to know your business. So, you're not immediately getting shut off 2 weeks later because, you came, really hot out the gate. But that's a lot of the work, we do. And especially now, I think merchants kind of understand the need to have multiple mids and, de-risk their business by not having all their eggs in one basket. So, the last like 2 weeks has been really interesting. I've noticed a lot of merchants on X talking about, hey, Shopify payments is shutting us off because, we're growing quickly. Our chargebacks maybe, spiked up a little bit, but I think obviously a lot of that stems from Vamp now. But the big challenge, especially now, this is, we're heading into obviously the, crazy Q4. Merchants typically do a lot more volume. So, one of the crazy, stories I've, had with just like doing too much volume, getting you in trouble. I think a couple years ago, I was introduced to someone on Thanksgiving night. An old merchant introduced me to a buddy of his that literally they hit their cap. The processor put a hard cap going into like, Black Friday, Cyber Monday, and he was freaking out. And on a Thursday night, sent him the app. Friday, he was approved. We got him another mid. So, also too, you got to be able to like really make moves and pivot quickly if like you're kind of headed for disaster. So, it's always a tough spot to be in if you're, it's a good problem to have if you're growing really quickly, but you gotta like now, especially, payment strategy is like so important for businesses to think about. Like you can't neglect like your payments infrastructure, your payment stack as you're trying to grow your business, because at the end of the day, if you can't accept payments, you don't have a business and you're kind of screwed.
Out.
So
yeah, I mean, people aren't, we got an auto parts guy today. And I'm looking at this and I'm going, yeah, you're tough out. He's like, I'm taking orders right now, but I'm not taking the payments because he got matched and shut down. But I'm going, yeah, well, he better get a solution quick. So we've been talking kind of generally of like what agents should be. And I was doing that kind of to segue into, let's talk about My CPO. You started this, you said, you're at Maverick, a family company for years and years and years. And then you said, hey, I'm going to start out a company that's, a little bit different. So why don't you tell us about that? You don't have to talk about why you split out from the business necessarily, but you were looking to do something a little different.
Yeah, I mean, I just ultimately liked being merchant facing, and I loved working with my clients and helping businesses, with their challenges and struggles. And that's, over the years, obviously just kind of being in the industry for a while, people know who you are, and you take care of a couple of good merchants, and then they refer you their friends, and it kind of just, that kind of just snowballs, gradually. And yeah, I think, the Mavericks model was much more, agent focused, and they didn't really want to do, sales in house. And I always respected that, especially now, like seeing from both sides as the ISO and the agent. It's always nice when you're an agent and you don't really have to worry about your upstream partners competing with you. So, it was a really tough decision, and, to kind of leave and branch off. But, for me, I just ultimately wanted to do what I enjoy doing most. And that was just working with my clients and helping businesses solve their payment challenges. And the best way for me to do that ultimately was just to branch off, start my own thing, and also to still help, Maverick, just in a kind of different structure.
So what, you've spun out from, let's say you're an executive at a, very large, successful company, and you spun out and said, hey, I'm going to do this on my own. What were some of the parts? I mean, we spoke before you started. I would say one of the good parts is you're working from home. You get to be around your 3-year-old daughter, and the glimmer in your eye. And then what were some of the hard parts about jumping ship and, hanging your shingle?
Yeah. So it's, starting a business is not easy. Like just however you want to slice it up, as you guys know. So yeah, it was really, I think the big thing was just kind of trying to get used to just this whole new setup and just more of like a mindset shift. But, then also too, the business started to ramp up, and, it's been growing. So now it's like, okay, great. Now I got to start hiring people. And so it's just, constant challenges of just really growing pains of a new business, because it's just me too. So it's not like I have co-founders. It's all on me at the end of the day. But it's a fun point now because I am starting to hire, build out the team, and, try to get myself removed from obviously being involved in just every single task. So it's a lot. I mean, the merchants that I focus on are much more, in that restricted space. So with that, obviously they're a little bit more high maintenance, and just in the sense of there's always challenges and fires that you're kind of dealing with. So for me, just to focus on obviously the most critical parts of a business, really be, more of a, that cheesy saying of like, working on your business, not working in your business. That's been definitely the growing pains of building out that team, and just making sure, like customer service. I mean, if you have, I have already, a couple hundred merchants that I'm managing, and it's just me. I do have another employee who's been really helpful the last couple of months, but it's still, you're dealing with every day. Hey, I got a couple chargebacks I need help with fighting. Can you spend an hour with me doing that? So, I really want to make sure I can give everyone the attention, but the business needs to get more scalable, I like to say. So, you got to have good systems in place. You got to have, SOPs and processes to be able to obviously really start to, dial up the company. Because it's been, kind of, I guess you can say, kind of a lifestyle business for a little while. But now it's like, all right, what, I want to take it to that next level, actually grow the company and really, build it. Because I've already seen what's possible before. You just you show up every day and you're consistent, and you can build a pretty successful company with obviously no outside investment or capital. You just suit up and show up, and you can make some, you can build a pretty big company. So,
yeah, I mean, I see it a lot where people, they feel like they're captive in their executive role. Even at, say you're an executive sales role and you're going, look, I'm at this company. I've got this great book of business. I'm feeling a little cornered here. I want to spin out. And they're going, well, I can't because I'm going to lose my residuals. But the better companies will go, yeah, go do your thing. You're going to keep your residuals. So like you said, you don't need to go get an investor because you're nothing's changing.
yeah.
You've got this old deal over here, and then we'll give you a new deal over here. And even a lot of times we see the good companies being like, yeah, and you don't even need to be exclusive. Just don't take any of your merchants away, of course.
Yeah.
But yeah, generally it's fine. And so we see people so worried about that, but we're going, no, you can absolutely go and do your own thing, because when you're in that executive role, I was going to joke with you, like, I bet you're having a lot less meetings now where it's, Maverick has got so big where they actually, you need to have those meetings and stuff like that. But yeah, to be freed, we see a lot of people once they're out and they're like, oh my gosh, this is great. But then the hard part is then you're going, oh, wow, I can't do everything.
Yeah.
Because before I had everyone else doing everything and they handle customer service and I was just out selling, but now you're doing everything. And then that's where it gets tricky, because then you have people from your old company calling you being like, oh, hey, I want to come work for you. And then you're like, oh, no, well, now I'm getting, in hot water and that stuff. That's where it gets hard. So how did you hire people? How did you find them?
So, a good thing for me of just being in the industry, I know a lot of people, and obviously too, you got to be careful how you navigate through, if you try to poach people from, partners and stuff like that. But, I worked with a, industry, recruiter that, Chris recommended actually and connected me with, and just helped me out just with like this first hire. But now, as I am expanding the team, I don't really even have to, post much about like putting, jobs up on some of these platforms. I just happen to know a lot of people, which is nice, and I can kind of reach out and just have those conversations with people. Just try to see, if they're looking for new opportunities. So I'm not obviously at a point where I'm like, hiring like crazy. It's, very strategic, kind of one by one, still small team, but try to get those, key positions in like customer service, marketing, onboarding, sales support. So it's a fun, very manageable, kind of growth of start to, as the needs come up for different roles. And then also too, as the company grows and evolve, you really start to figure out like, where do I want to focus on? Obviously, like sales is my background. Everything else, like I don't necessarily want to do. So like, that's the, when it's lucky, when you're working from a big company, it's like, hey, I need some marketing assets done. Okay, great. You go to the marketing person. Hey, I need this agent's, red line this agreement. Okay, great. You go to your in-house counsel to review that there. So you don't have, or, customer service, you walk over to someone on the customer service team, like, hey, can you spend like 20 minutes just going over the statement with, with my client here? I got to focus on, selling. So yeah. I'm not at that point yet, but that's obviously the goal. And, every business is different too. So, I've talked to, obviously a lot of agents over the years, and they're fine just kind of being a one-man band. And they're like, hey, this is just, kind of a lifestyle business for me. I get the ultimate freedom. I work when I want, and, I don't need to try to make an insane amount of money. And I'm kind of good with where I am. But, I don't know, everyone's different with, the way they want to take their business and all that. So, yeah, I'm just, kind of taking it, month by month, and just really trying to have fun, obviously, at the end of the day. So it's very stressful, just trying to launch and grow a business, but you got to have fun with it too, right? It's like, I'm hold myself to very high standards, I think. And I put a lot of pressure on myself of like, this is where you should be. This is where you should be. But, you got to take a step back sometimes and just say, you know what? Life is good. Things can always be worse. You got your health, and, it's going to all, progress, and you just, trust the process and think long term, and, good things will happen if you just do good, honest work, I believe in karma. As long as you're taking care of your merchants and you're, honest, transparent, person, which there's not a lot of in this industry, unfortunately, good things are bound to happen.
Yeah, I always see that when I see we run into, of course, a lot of the bad players. And I always see that and I'm like, you guys could have made plenty of money just doing things the right way. And you see these companies where they blow up and they, sell for $100 million just from robbing people. And you're going like, that is so messed up. But I'm going to you like, yeah, it'll come around. But yeah, I mean, a lot of these people just get away with it. Mm-hmm. But it's not sustainable growth. I mean, obviously, if you sell for $100 million, hopefully it's pretty sustainable. But
yeah.
But if the companies that do it the right way, those are the companies that you see that have, the same guys work in the same booth at the trade shows of, you see the other companies where it's like, oh, this person has a different colored shirt this year because they're pushing too hard and they're cramming. So but I know we wanted to talk a little bit about Vamp. What are your thoughts on the new Visa rules?
Yeah, I mean, there's not a whole lot we can do, other than, Visa, MasterCard, they set the rules. We got to play by it. And, it's getting tougher, obviously very, going to be very frustrating especially if you are working with a lot of, card not present merchants, especially in those higher risk verticals. It's just going to get tougher. The thresholds are getting lower and lower, which, for many years, I mean, even if you kind of go back to like when COVID started, and you saw the last couple of years, everything, that just big shift towards e-commerce. I feel like, except for like the very initial, that beginning period of COVID where like maybe travel merchants were just getting hacked left and right and shut off. But like, it's been pretty lax, I feel like, just how processors have managed merchants and, like everyone kind of used for a long time that 1% threshold of like, hey, just, stay under 1% and like you'll probably be fine. Or, seeing merchants run consistently at like 1.5%, 2% even, and like never really had any issues. I guess too, if the processor's making a bunch of money on chargeback fees, they got a 10% reserve. They're like, okay, like, do we really like, let's just keep this merchant on. And, but now like there's a lot of, tough calls I think acquirers and processors are going to have to make on like this. We got, a couple really profitable high margin merchants, but like they're accounting for like 80% of our problems here. Like, I mean, we probably need to offboard them. And we're going to take we're going to take a hit on our, on our revenue, but like, it's going to be really tough. Like these next couple months too, I think people are still just kind of like really trying to navigate it, but I've already seen merchants getting charged for Vamp fees now. And, processors are already starting to kind of pass through some of these fees and figure out ways to, offset, I guess, that risk. So it's always a tough balance for, for processors to kind of weigh risk and reward. But now it's, there's just so much more pressure from Vamp. And I think it's going to get tougher to get, underwritten and onboarded. And it's also like, if you're a high volume merchant and your chargebacks are kind of high, like you're kind of screwed, honestly. That's why I see a lot of merchants now, they're just trying to set up, as many mids as they can get, just kind of knowing like we get 5 mids set up. We're probably going to lose, 3, 2, of them at some point, but like, we got to have some redundancy and just make sure like we don't like lose all of our processing. But it's really tough. I mean, it comes down to the education too, and just like making sure you're talking with your merchants on like, these are the new rules, here are the tools that you probably should implement. For a lot of merchants too, like they don't want to make any changes unless they absolutely have to. They're like, hey, I can get set up with this processor. They're not going to have me enroll in any of the alerts. They're not going to require RDR, Ethica, all that stuff. They're just like, they're really lax and they're just going to give me a mid and just kind of let me run with it. But like that's not really going to be, acceptable anymore. And I'm sure there will be those ISOs that just say, screw it. Like we have such a low risk, such a low chargeback, ratio in our portfolio. We can handle, a bit of high risk. So, but also too, if, the industry, these agents, some of these high risk merchants catch wind of like some new ISO popping up that's starting to take on high risk. It takes a couple of weeks for them just to get like overwhelmed with apps and people reaching out like, hey, these ISOs are all getting, the usual suspects of ISOs are getting tough. Like we got to find some new homes. And, it's going to be, I really hate to be like negative, but I think it's going to get, pretty bad in these coming months.
I think it's going to get bad, but then I think that Visa will see that they're making it so they're basically denying people processing who aren't that bad. So we know that it's designed. We know what the purpose is, but I don't think it's going to have the effect necessarily, because like you said, you're punishing good, well-intentioned merchants who are dealing with bad cardholders. So I think that, probably going into, January, February, they'll change it. So
once there's enough pushback from the industry, maybe they'll make some changes, but
when they're making less money, maybe that'll do it.
Yeah. Right. So it's, Visa, MasterCard, at the end of the day, they're just always making money. It's just always coming in one way or another. So, which is kind of tough. It's always tough, I feel like, for merchants because they always kind of get screwed at the end of the day. So it's going to be costly for them either way. So it's either you don't make the changes to get your chargebacks under control and like, okay, that's fine. But now you're going to get, charged all these extra, maybe Vamp related fees from your ISO, or they're going to maybe increase your rates, your other just your regular per transaction cost because you are running really high. So you have that expense or that increased expense, or on the other side, you can put, you can implement the alerts, you can get, hire customer service people, actually build a legitimate business and make those changes. It's going to cost you money, but the benefit's going to be your chargebacks are going to be lower now. And, maybe you will build, cleaner history. You won't be on the radar as much. So, either way, it's going to cost merchants money to kind of meet these new thresholds, whether they want to make all the changes, put in all the tools, or not, take any action and pay for it by getting, fined and penalized. So, that's the tough call for merchants to make because it's, they're already getting charged, left and right, especially these high risk merchants. They got charged all sorts of different fees. So it's now you start to bring on, hey, there's more costs and more fees, but at the end of the day, if that's going to be kind of what keeps their business operating, that's kind of their only option. So totally.
All right. Well, you get the last word. What do you want to leave our millions of viewers and listeners with? What's the biggest takeaway you want them to think about after today? After their third time listening to this?
So, I think the biggest takeaway is that, hope is not a strategy. You gotta be, you gotta be proactive. And you just, you have to pay attention to chargebacks. You can't overlook like the importance of a good, solid payment stack. So just, working with the right people, partnering with the right, agents and ISOs and, getting yourself set up for success from day one is so crucial. So this is what we do. All day, every day is just helping solve these challenges. But I can't stress enough to people is just, and merchants especially, just, keeping the payment strategy in mind, just, starting your business, even from like the very beginning, thinking about payments and just how to set yourself up for success long-term is so crucial.
All right, great. Well, how do people get in touch with you?
So LinkedIn's always good. X or Twitter X, whatever you want to call it. I have somewhat of a presence there. Otherwise, go to the website. It's just getmycpo.com. Email me, mg@getmycpo.com. Always happy to talk to anyone, regardless of kind of where they're at, their situation. If they just want to bounce some ideas off me, always happy to give that value.
Thank you for listening to this episode of the Payments Experts Podcast, a podcast of Global Legal Law Firm. Visit us online today at globallegallawfirm.com. Matters discussed are all opinions and do not constitute legal advice. All events or likeness to real people and events is a coincidence.